better than ever. Why?
Even strange.
The Illuminati will see you now.
Welcome back, Super Radio highlights movie reviews, and of course, we gotta be talking about Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, the new big MCU movie. And right off the bat, I'll tell you, I loved it. I thought it was great. A couple of things right away jump out at me. You know, of course, Benedict Cumberbatch returning in the title role. Could it get any more perfect than him? That's one of the things the MCU and Disney, they really excel at, is casting. I mean, whether it's Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, or Hemsworth as Thor, Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. The list goes on and on and on. They do great with that. And how about the director, Sam Raimi, coming out to direct this, and it's not like this is the first superhero outing for Sam Raimi. Of course, he did the Tobey Maguire movies, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, which he directed great. And, you know, when you're talking about this movie, you're looking at the combination of horror and comedy. And Sam Raimi is king, right? He directed Evil Dead and Army of Darkness. So if there's anybody who knows how to put together comedy and horror, it's Sam Raimi. And this movie was great for it, 100%. I also like the introduction of the America Chavez character. I wasn't sure how I would feel about that because it's a character I'm not very familiar with, but her powers were extremely interesting to me. The ability to travel between universes, to travel the multiverse, I thought that was really cool. Her backstory, the fact that each multiverse she goes to, she can't find another version of herself, and she's lost her family going through these multiverses. So I really dug the America Chavez character. I thought that was a great part of the movie that I really liked. And I love its connection to Disney Plus and the What If cartoon. I thought that was super cool to see characters right out of that cartoon. And one of the things I loved about it too, of course, like every other big time Marvel fan, was finally getting to see characters like, spoiler alert, Professor Xavier. Not much of a spoiler, and I'm going to get to that because of the internet, but we all knew Professor Xavier was going to be in the movie. Reed Richards, a little bit more of a surprise, Mr. Fantastic. Of course, you got Captain Britain right out of the What If cartoon series. Captain Marvel, another version of Captain Marvel, right out of the What If cartoon series. So I really dig all of that. It makes the MCU feel like a complete universe, and they keep building on that, and I really love it. And it's also leads to some spectacular character deaths, really true to the spirit of the comic book, because that's what the What If comic books were, and What If back in the day, you know, that's what represented the multiverse, and it was a playground for writers. And as a kid, I always wanted to pick up the new What If comic book because it was a great chance to see characters die that you would never see die in the regular books. Nobody was safe in a What If comic book, whether it was Spider-Man, Wolverine, you know, Captain America. Anybody could die, and die horrifically in a What If comic. And this movie is very true to the spirit of those comic books. So I really enjoyed that. Black Bolt, of course, was in there too. And that's my issue with the internet, right? It goes back to the Spider-Man movie where we all knew Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. We knew they were gonna be in the movie. This was not a surprise. We knew months beforehand. We knew Daredevil was gonna be in the movie. It was all ruined by the internet. Can you imagine how exciting it would have been if you saw Professor Xavier come out in this movie and you had no idea it was going to happen? The internet partially ruined this movie, so it took the excitement away from those parts, which really could have been the biggest parts of the movie. But I guess, you know, we're used to it by now. And taking it even further, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, to me, this is the MCU better than ever. Why? Well, what's one of our biggest complaints about the MCU? The villains always suck. They put all the character development into the hero, and there's never a good villain. Never a villain, you know, on the level of a Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight, even though it's hard to reach that level. But, you know, there's never a compelling villain in any MCU film. I tell you right now, and I think it's hard to argue this movie had the best villain in MCU history, and a surprising villain at that, because I was not expecting the Scarlet Witch to be a villain in this movie. There were misleading trailers, which is a breath of fresh air, actually, with what I just told you, right? I kind of felt like she would be helping Doctor Strange against some sort of evil in the multiverse. Well, she was the evil, and she was spectacular. And part of the reason is because you've had many movies to develop her character, to develop that pain, even a television series, WandaVision, you know, where it really built up everything that's kind of turned her away from good and into this psychotic madness that she's experiencing right now, wanting to have these children that don't exist in her universe. The performance by Olsen is top notch. Again, the most compelling, brilliantly performed, fun, evil villain in MCU and in the MCU. And this is why it really was the MCU so far at its best, because there hasn't been a complete movie like this yet. Any movie you want to go back at and say, oh, that was great, Captain America, First Avenger, Red Skull, I mean, just go through some of these characters. I mean, look at Iron Man 2, you had Justin Hammer, Whiplash, pretty good characters in the comic books. I mean, just awful in those movies, non-existent. General Dreykov in the Black Widow, the silent Taskmaster in Black Widow, just terrible. Malekith in Thor, a pretty interesting character in the comic books, absolutely boring and a nothing character, one of the worst MCU movies, partially because of that. Ronan the Accuser from Guardians of the Galaxy, just nothing there. It's not just, the movie was great and the heroes were fun, but the villains, there's nothing to it. Think about Zemo in Civil War, Captain America Civil War, just pales in comparison to the Zemo in the comics. Usually, even if an MCU movie is great, the villain kind of stinks. You know, the heroes are just so great. So I've seen people complain that this is more of a Wanda movie. This is a movie about the Scarlet Witch. It's not a Doctor Strange movie. Well, that's why this movie's great. So many times, these Marvel movies, they spend too much time on the hero and picking up the hero and not enough time making a great villain. And this is the first time they really do that. And I just, again, look at the Batman movies with Joker. Even the Nicholson Joker back in '89 got top billing in the end credits, right? Who is Joker, Jack Nicholson, and then Batman. You know, so it's kind of within that tradition where the villain is as important as the hero. And here, it really works. So being that this movie had the best villain in the history of the MCU, I think it's the MCU at its best. It's one of my favorite MCU films to this point, and I would have to say my overall rating for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness would be an 8 out of 10. It was a multiverse, so you got different versions of Doctor Strange. You know, we even had a poll on Super Radio Brothers social media where we said, how many different versions of Doctor Strange do you think there will be? Our viewers picked 5 to 7 by my count. I think it was 4 because you had the Doctor Strange at the beginning of the movie. He died, then he became zombie Doctor Strange. You had who they're calling Sinister Doctor Strange, who's the evil Doctor Strange, and of course Prime Doctor Strange, our Earth 616 Doctor Strange. So I dug all of those versions. I thought Cumberbatch was great in the movie again. To me, this was an 8 out of 10 movie. MCU at its best. And man, Scarlet Witch, the best villain in the MCU so far. It was really great. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to our channel. We'll see you in the highlights.